I just wanted to give an update video. This is kind of I'm assuming it's going to be probably the last one of the season that I'm going to be doing, and that I just wanted to show you that the end of season growth, it's now in September of the first year of this greening of the desert permaculture experiment, and it's just a quick overview of what the yard now looks like, and just the various projects that I have going on. So you can see it went from that incredibly dry, hardly anything living, and now that there's quite a bit of quote-unquote weeds, but that's actually most what you see is the wild amaranth. So now I'm going to go into specific details, the various projects that I'm working on. So kind of start from the left to right, and so I'm going to show you into the sun now. I'm going to eventually have the west. I mean, this is going from east, the helo tracker, the sun, to go over to the west side. So on the west side there hasn't been a lot of stuff done here. It's not a whole lot of space, but eventually I'm trying to grow some trumpet vine down here, which will then grow up the wall, and then which will come up to help shade the house, which will then keep the cooling down, reducing the amount of heating and cooling pressure. And so eventually this will be just for the vine area and little walkway and storage of materials like excess wood that I've collected from Craigslist and stuff like that. So then coming over here, this is one of the only few plants, let's see if it'll go in focus, there it goes, one of the few plants that has survived. So now it's still surviving, you know, hanging on after all the ground modification. You know, a lot of the wild amaranth just chop and drop, and that yesterday was actually a very good monsoon rain, and surprisingly it rained for most of the day. So chop and drop during when the precipitation rate exceeds the evaporation rate, so that's when I came out and chopped and dropped. So again, more wild amaranth, and you can see that it's doing very well. Over here is a roseberry bush that's trying to take off. In the corner there's purslane. There's actually quite a bit of wild grasses that came back. The seeds were still in the seed bank. So I think Bermuda type grass, another weed type grass, I don't know what grass that is. This is the little garden that's going to be produced, and that right there is artichoke. It's a perennial plant. Carrot, and those were planted from carrot tops, and they were just punched into the soil. The corn plants, they've actually done pretty well, and I wanted to comment on the corn plants, and that this sheet mulching is 6 to 8 inches deep, and below that there's a layer of used grocery bags, paper grocery bags, and plywood, or sorry, not plywood, but cardboard. And you can actually see that with a minimal amount of watering, because during June and July I barely watered them, you know, just enough to keep them going, and it was enough to keep the water in the ground, and the corn plants actually did pretty well. You know, just the ground was rototilled before, and that's going to be the first and last time that I'm going to rototill the ground. After that it's only going to be decomposition materials going in there. And so my friend's corn plants are actually, like, if I can just do that, they were like this big, stunted and dead. He did not use the same principles that I did. He kept them open ground, it was bare soil, and he had a drip irrigation line which he used every single day to do drip irrigation. And you can see that his corn plants compared to mine, it was the same variety, because he actually provided me with the corn seeds. His plants were like this big, stunted, and didn't actually grow. And you know, mine actually, with the sheet mulching, did very well. So, and then in the back there's a grape. Eventually that grape is going to grow up onto the walls, hopefully. You know, and then you can kind of see the walkway if I wanted to get to the back side. So this is a double reach garden, so that if I were to reach my arm across, I could reach into there without disturbing the soil. I do have planks in case I want to walk on it, you know, and make a little cheater, go across it. Some beans right there got reseeded, and another bean got reseeded, and that was all the beans I had tried to plant didn't make it. And so these are actually reseeded after that, and so they're starting to come back now. A peanut plant right there made it, another carrot, daikon radish, and I just wanted to show, like, some of the, if you can come in here, some of the straw I actually used didn't have all the the seeds removed. So I think this is some kind of wheat. I don't know if it's summer wheat or winter wheat, but just during the last month or so, this stuff just started growing everywhere and exploding. So I think it's winter wheat, and that it's growing at the later part of the season and would eventually get ripe. And I don't know if you saw that, but lizards are now growing in there. I'll probably do a little bit of animals that I've now seen reappearing, but still continuing. That's just a mound of the excess dirt right there that I had from this. When I excavated this, I had to move the excess dirt. So just changing the contour of the land, kind of an experiment. I'm going to just keep that dirt there, and I've chopped and dropped some of the other materials and put it on top to retain some of the moisture in there. Again, just wild amaranth everywhere. Here's a very important observation. You can see just in the shade, so it's about noon right now, and you can see, bare ground in this area right here, shade. And it's just so important in the high desert sun that anywhere there's a little bit of shade, these wild amaranths are just going crazy, and you can see it kind of following the house contour. So I'll just walk along that now. So again, shade, 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 sun, very little plants, shade, and you can again see just the shade and how the plants are just exploding right there. So that's very important. The pear tree, pear tree was actually here before. And again, you can see the importance of the shade, and that the shade over there, that you can see the wild amaranths growing in that little shaded area during this hottest part of the day. The Jerusalem artichokes I moved to the back. They actually seem to do fairly well wherever. They're very hardy. Another great plant that's eventually going to try and grow out into there. I'm going to have to continue working on that. The compost got started, and some of it is now finished, and so I've actually been doing the compost tea, and that's actually been a very nice experiment. So just again, observation. Talk about that in another video, maybe part 2 of this video. Working with a kugel mound, just experimenting with it. So far it's going alright. Oh, the doves are back. Yes, if you heard that, that was a dove. And that they actually like to come and try and find some seeds. So anyway, the hugel mound, just getting established. There are wild amaranth, and I tried to put a lot of nitrogen fixers in here, but there's a little bit of dandelion, there's some grass growing in it. None of the nitrogen fixers really took off. I put a bunch of seeds for mimosa tree, vetch, and alfalfa, but I think it was too late in the year for them to really get started. So I saw some starts of some mimosa trees, but it doesn't look like they've really made it. Maybe over there might be one vetch or something like that going. But yeah, unfortunately I was trying to get the nitrogen fixtures to really grow in here, but they haven't done it again. And you can see there's a little bit more of that winter wheat from the straw that's kind of been thrown onto the ground. So just in the fall zone of this tree, I put a bunch of straw layer and other ground debris to keep the ground moist. And so anyway, the plants and stuff really tend to dig it. And I just want to show real quick over here, just a little walkway, and I have this little walkway set up. I'll talk about that in a sec. But this walkway, I kind of have this nice little curve, and I kind of enjoy that. And having been trained in scientific principles, it reminds me of like a hyperbolic curve, or asymptotic curve, where you have a really rapid learning process, and then eventually you reach a point where you have you kind of level off. And that kind of describes my learning into permaculture, and that I'm still way down here at the start, and then I'm still going up this incredibly steep learning curve. And so then I'll eventually after many years reach some asymptotic learning. So very quickly, in the last part of this little presentation, I just wanted to show that the shade area, I changed the slopes that the water kind of drains down this way, so that this area, in addition to being shaded, is also a little swale. So it collects quite a bit of water, and the rainwater system over there, if it overflows, it actually comes down this way, comes, and then flows down that little swale. So great for shade and catching water.